The American backyard has always been a place for growing fresh food and beautiful plants, but not all vegetables are welcome. Some threaten native ecosystems, others carry deadly diseases, and a few are so invasive they can destroy entire farms. The vegetables that seem the most innocent can often be the most destructive. Let's explore 25 illegal vegetables that you can't grow in American gardens. 1. Japanese knotweed shoots. Japanese knotweed produces hollow bamboo-like shoots that emerge in spring and are actually quite edible. The young shoots taste similar to rhubarb with a tart, lemony flavor and crunchy texture. In Japan, these shoots are harvested as a seasonal delicacy, often pickled, stir-fried, or added to soups. They're rich in vitamins and have been used in traditional cooking for centuries. But in America, Japanese knotweed is banned in most states because it's one of the most destructive invasive plants ever introduced. The roots can grow 10 feet deep and spread 60 feet horizontally, cracking foundations, breaking through concrete, and destroying native plant communities. Once established, it's nearly impossible to eliminate, and property owners can face massive cleanup costs and legal liability for letting it spread to neighboring land. 2. Kudzu leaves and roots. Kudzu was once called the miracle vine, and the young leaves and shoots are actually quite nutritious and edible. In Asian cuisine, kudzu leaves are commonly stir-fried like spinach, made into tea, or used to wrap other foods. The large roots can be processed into a starch similar to arrowroot and used for thickening soups and making noodles. Today, kudzu is banned in most states because it grows up to a foot per day and smothers everything in its path. Nicknamed the vine that ate the South, it covers over 7 million acres and causes billions in damage annually. The vine climbs trees, power lines, and buildings, often causing structural damage and power outages. Planting kudzu can result in hefty fines and mandatory removal costs. 3. Garlic mustard greens. Garlic mustard looks like an innocent leafy green with heart-shaped leaves that have a mild garlic flavor. European settlers brought this plant to America specifically as a culinary herb and medicinal plant. The leaves can be eaten raw in salads when young and tender, or cooked like spinach when mature. They're actually quite nutritious and were a valuable food source for early colonists. Despite its edible qualities, garlic mustard is banned from cultivation in many areas because it's destroying North American forests. It releases chemicals into the soil that prevent other plants from growing, and it spreads so aggressively that it can take over entire woodland areas. The plant threatens rare native wildflowers and disrupts the relationships between native plants and the insects that depend on them. 4. Water spinach, kangkong. Water spinach, also known as kangkong or morning glory vegetable, is a popular leafy green in Southeast Asian cuisine. The hollow stems and arrow-shaped leaves are commonly stir-fried with garlic, added to soups, or used in curries. It's incredibly nutritious, fast-growing, and can be harvested continuously by cutting the stems, which quickly regrow. Water spinach is banned in most U.S. states because it's considered a noxious weed that can clog waterways and crowd out native aquatic plants. The plant spreads rapidly through both seeds and stem fragments and can quickly take over wetland areas. Even though it's a valuable food crop in many countries, its invasive potential makes it illegal to grow in American gardens. 5. Giant salvinia. Giant salvinia is an aquatic fern whose young fronds are edible and used in some traditional cuisines. The small floating leaves can be harvested and prepared similar to other leafy greens. In some parts of the world, it's considered a delicacy and is prized for its unique texture and mild flavor, but giant salvinia is banned across the United States because it's one of the world's worst aquatic weeds. It doubles its biomass every few days and can completely cover water surfaces, blocking sunlight and killing everything underneath. The plant has no natural predators in North America and can turn lakes and rivers into biological deserts. Even possessing giant salvinia can result in significant fines. 6. Water chestnut. Water chestnut produces starchy, edible nuts that were once harvested by Native Americans as an important food source. The nuts have a sweet, nutty flavor and can be eaten raw, boiled, or roasted. They're high in carbohydrates and were a valuable survival food that could be stored for winter use. Despite being edible and historically important, water chestnut is banned in most states because it forms dense mats that make water bodies unusable. The sharp, spiny nuts can injure swimmers and damage boat propellers. The plant crowds out native aquatic vegetation and creates poor habitat for waterfowl and fish. Many states have active removal programs and prohibit any cultivation or transport. 7. Purple loosestrife. While primarily grown for its flowers, purple loosestrife produces young leaves that are actually edible when cooked. In traditional European cuisine, the tender leaves were used as a pot herb, similar to spinach or chard. They have a slightly astringent taste and were often mixed with other greens in soups and stews. Purple loosestrife is banned across most of North America because it destroys wetland ecosystems. A single plant can produce over 2 million seeds per year, and it forms dense stands that crowd out native plants that waterfowl and other wildlife depend on. The plant has invaded millions of acres of wetlands, causing irreversible ecological damage and costing millions in control efforts. 8. Autumn olive. Autumn olive produces small speckled red berries that are not only edible, but quite nutritious, containing high levels of vitamins and antioxidants. The berries have a tart, astringent flavor and can be made into jams, jellies, and sauces. They were once promoted by government agencies for wildlife food plots because of their nutritional value. Today, autumn olive is banned in many states because it has become a serious invasive threat. The shrubs grow rapidly and produce thousands of berries that birds spread far and wide. It forms dense thickets that crowd out native plants and alter soil chemistry. What was once planted for conservation purposes is now considered an ecological disaster that requires expensive control efforts. 9. Multiflora rose hips. Multiflora rose produces clusters of tiny red rose hips that are technically edible and extremely high in vitamin C. The rose hips can be made into jellies, teas, syrups, and other food products. During World War II, rose hips were actually promoted as a vitamin C source when citrus fruits were scarce. But multiflora rose is now banned in most states because it forms impenetrable thickets that take over pastures and natural areas. The thorny canes can grow 15 feet long and create barriers that are impossible for humans or large animals to penetrate. It crowds out native plants and provides poor habitat for wildlife compared to native alternatives. 10. Tree of Heaven seeds. Tree of Heaven produces clusters of papery seeds that have been used in traditional Chinese medicine and cuisine. The seeds can be processed and prepared in various ways, though they require special preparation to be safely consumed. In some cultures, they're still used as a food source during times of scarcity. In America, Tree of Heaven is banned in many areas because it's extremely invasive and difficult to control. It releases chemicals that kill other plants, and its roots can damage foundations and sewer lines. The tree also serves as a host for the spotted lanternfly, an invasive pest that's devastating fruit crops and forests across the eastern United States. 11. Water hyacinth. Water hyacinth produces thick, spongy leaf stalks that are actually edible and used in some Asian cuisines. The young leaves and flower buds can be harvested and added to soups, stir-fries, or eaten as a vegetable. The plant is also used to make salads and has a mild, slightly sweet flavor. In America, water hyacinth is banned in most states because it's one of the world's worst aquatic weeds. It doubles its population every 2 weeks and can completely clog waterways, blocking boat traffic and killing fish by depleting oxygen levels. The plant has caused millions in damage to water systems and fisheries. Even possessing water, hyacinth can result in significant fines. 12. Giant hogweed. Giant hogweed produces massive umbrella-shaped flower heads, but it's the thick, hollow stems that are sometimes eaten in parts of Europe. The young stems can be peeled and prepared similar to rhubarb, though this requires extreme caution and expertise. The plant can grow up to 15 feet tall with stems several inches thick. In the United States, giant hogweed is banned because its sap contains toxic compounds that cause severe burns when exposed to sunlight. Even brushing against the plant can result in painful blisters and permanent scarring. The plant spreads rapidly along waterways and crowds out native vegetation. Many states have active eradication programs and require immediate reporting of any sightings. 13th, Brazilian waterweed. Brazilian waterweed is an aquatic plant whose tender shoots and leaves are sometimes harvested and eaten in parts of South America. The plant can be prepared similar to other aquatic vegetables and has a mild, slightly sweet flavor. It's rich in nutrients and grows rapidly in water. However, Brazilian waterweed is banned in most states because it grows so aggressively that it can completely fill lakes and rivers. It forms dense mats that block sunlight, kill native aquatic plants, and make water bodies unusable for recreation. The plant can grow several inches per day and is nearly impossible to eliminate once established. 14. Hydrilla. Hydrilla is an underwater plant whose young shoots and leaves are edible and used in some traditional cuisines. The tender growing tips can be harvested and prepared like other aquatic vegetables. In some parts of Asia, hydrilla is still consumed as a nutritious green vegetable. But hydrilla is banned across most of the United States because it's one of the most destructive aquatic weeds in the world. It grows so densely that it blocks boat propellers, clogs water intake pipes, and creates stagnant conditions that kill fish. A single fragment can start a new infestation, and the plant has cost billions in control efforts and economic losses. 15. Parrot's feather. Parrot's feather produces delicate, feathery leaves that emerge above water surfaces. While not commonly eaten, the tender young shoots are sometimes harvested and used as an aquatic vegetable in certain cuisines. The plant has a mild flavor and can be prepared similar to other water plants. Parrot's feather is prohibited in most states because it grows so rapidly that it can take over entire water bodies in a single season. It forms dense mats that block sunlight and deplete oxygen, killing fish and other aquatic life. The plant spreads through fragmentation, meaning any piece that breaks off can start a new colony. 16. Eurasian watermilfoil. Eurasian watermilfoil has finely divided underwater leaves that are sometimes used as an aquatic vegetable. The tender growing tips can be harvested and prepared like other water plants. In some traditional cuisines, watermilfoil is valued for its delicate texture and mild flavor. This aquatic plant is banned across North America because it forms dense underwater forests that interfere with swimming, boating, and fishing. It crowds out native aquatic plants and reduces biodiversity in lakes and rivers. The plant spreads rapidly through fragmentation and has invaded thousands of water bodies, causing millions in economic losses. 17. Yellow iris rhizomes. Yellow iris produces thick underground rhizomes that were historically used as a food source during times of scarcity. The rhizomes require extensive processing to remove bitter compounds, but they can be ground into flour or prepared as a starchy vegetable. They were sometimes used as a coffee substitute when roasted. But yellow iris is banned in many states because it forms dense colonies that crowd out native wetland plants. It spreads through both seeds and underground rhizomes, making it extremely difficult to control once established. The plant alters wetland ecosystems and provides poor habitat for native wildlife compared to indigenous plants. 18. Flowering rush rhizomes. Flowering rush produces thick, starchy rhizomes that are technically edible and have been used as a food source in some cultures. The rhizomes can be processed and prepared similar to other root vegetables, though they require proper preparation to be palatable. Despite having edible parts, flowering rush is banned in most northern states because it's rapidly spreading through the Great Lakes region. It forms dense stands that crowd out native aquatic plants and alter shoreline habitats. The plant spreads through seeds and root fragments, and even small pieces can establish new colonies. 19. European frogbit. European frogbit produces small tubers and young leaves that are sometimes eaten in traditional European cuisines. The plant parts require proper preparation, but can be used as an aquatic vegetable. The tubers are starchy and can be prepared similar to small potatoes. European frogbit is now banned in many states because it forms dense mats that cover entire water surfaces, blocking sunlight and killing submerged plants. It spreads rapidly through runners and can quickly take over ponds and slow-moving waterways. The plant creates poor habitat for waterfowl and fish compared to native alternatives. 20. Curly-leaf pondweed. Curly-leaf pondweed produces starchy tubers and edible shoots that are sometimes harvested as aquatic vegetables. The plant parts can be prepared similar to other water plants and have been used as food sources in various cultures. The tubers are particularly nutritious and can be stored for later use. This aquatic plant is prohibited in many areas because it grows earlier in the season than native plants, giving it a competitive advantage. It forms dense beds that interfere with recreation and crowd out native vegetation. When the plant dies back in summer, it creates massive amounts of decaying matter that depletes oxygen and can cause fish kills. 21st, Fanwort. Fanwort produces tender shoots and leaves that are sometimes used as aquatic vegetables in certain cuisines. The young growing tips can be harvested and prepared like other water plants. The plant has a mild flavor and delicate texture when properly prepared. Fanwort is banned in most states because it grows so aggressively that it can fill entire water bodies. It spreads through fragmentation, meaning any broken piece can start a new infestation. The plant interferes with boating and swimming and creates dense mats that provide poor habitat for native fish and wildlife. 22. Water soldier. Water soldier produces thick, fleshy leaves arranged like a pineapple top that are sometimes eaten in traditional cuisines. The plant parts require proper preparation but can be used as an aquatic vegetable. The leaves have a slightly salty taste and crunchy texture. Despite its edible qualities, water soldier is banned in most northern states because it's spreading rapidly through the Great Lakes region. It forms dense colonies that crowd out native plants and interfere with boat traffic. The plant's sharp leaves can injure swimmers, and its dense growth creates poor conditions for fish and waterfowl. 23. Yellow floating heart. Yellow floating heart produces edible tubers and young leaves that are sometimes used in traditional Asian cuisines. The tubers can be prepared like small potatoes, while the tender leaves can be used as a leafy vegetable. The plant parts have a mild, slightly sweet flavor. But yellow floating heart is prohibited in many states because it spreads rapidly and forms dense mats that cover water surfaces. It crowds out native floating plants and can interfere with recreation. The plant spreads through seeds and runners, making it difficult to control once established. 24. Brittle naiad. Brittle naiad produces tender shoots and leaves that are sometimes harvested as aquatic vegetables. The young plant parts can be prepared similar to other water plants and have a mild, slightly salty flavor. In some cultures, naiad species are valued as nutritious aquatic greens. This plant is banned in many states because it grows so densely that it can completely fill shallow water bodies. It interferes with swimming and boating and crowds out native submerged plants that provide better habitat for fish and waterfowl. The plant's brittle nature makes it spread rapidly through fragmentation. 25th, Brazilian elodea. Brazilian elodea produces tender growing tips and young leaves that are sometimes used as aquatic vegetables in South American cuisines. The plant parts can be harvested continuously and prepared like other water plants. They have a mild flavor and are rich in nutrients. But Brazilian elodea is banned in most states because it's one of the most aggressive aquatic invaders in North America. It grows several inches per day and can completely fill water bodies, making them unusable for recreation. The plant crowds out native vegetation and creates poor habitat for fish and wildlife. Even tiny fragments can establish new infestations, making it nearly impossible to eliminate once introduced. These 25 vegetables prove that not everything that grows is welcome in American gardens. From ecological disasters to economic nightmares, some plants are simply too dangerous to allow in our landscapes. The government and nature both have their reasons for keeping these invasive species out of our backyards. If you found this eye-opening, wait until you see the forgotten vegetables that once thrived in American gardens but have completely vanished from our tables. Subscribe and click the video on your screen to discover the lost crops your great-grandparents grew that you probably never heard of.